Police withdraw over 11,500 officers from VIP protection duties. Bandits kidnap 25 in Niger. Security forces launch search. African leaders gather in Abuja to set new development goals. And away from Nigeria, Guinea-Bissau's military installs General Hota as junta leader. Hello, good evening and welcome to News Update on Trust TV. I am Fatima Ahmed Musa. The Inspector General of Police, Olukayode Egbetokun, has confirmed the withdrawal of 11,566 officers from VIP security assignments in line with presidential directive. Egbetokun emphasized that no governor, minister or influential individual can now demand police protection for personal reasons. He also debunked claims that 120,000 officers were attached to VIPs, calling the figures inaccurate.
These are lies. Not true. I don't know where they got their figure from. And that's the figure that's been brandished everywhere. That 120,000 policemen. How many are we in Nigerian police that would attach 120,000 to private individuals? The recent presidential directive that we should withdraw policemen from VIP protection made us to discover that 11,566 policemen are engaged in VIP protection as at today in Nigeria Police Force. Of course, this is not the first time we are implementing this type of directive. Recently, I gave instruction that policemen should be withdrawn from private individuals, and those private individuals desirous of police protection should reapply.
Now move to Niger, where bandits have abducted 24 farmers, including pregnant women, during an attack on Palaita community in Erena Ward, Shiroro local government area of Niger State. The attackers stormed a rice farm around 2 p.m. on Wednesday, while residents were harvesting crops and escaped with the victims despite the village being just 5 kilometers from a military base in Erena. Earlier the same day, another group of armed men invaded Kakuru community, also in Erena Ward, where they assaulted a blind resident and cut off his right hand after taking a neighbor's mobile phone from him. He is receiving first aid in Kuduru community. The Niger State Police Command says efforts are underway to track the attackers and rescue those kidnapped. The incident comes a week after 300 students and teachers were abducted from St. Mary's Catholic School in Papiri, highlighting the worsening security situation across parts of northern Nigeria. Now, 7 residents, including a 16-year-old boy and 6 young women, have been abducted by armed bandits in Gidam Bijimi, Kawu Ward, Buari Area Council of Federal Capital Territory, FCT. Gidam Bijimi is a boundary community located near Marke village on the Kaduna state border. A resident, Suleiman Shuaibu, confirmed the incident in a phone interview with Daily Trust on Thursday. The Kaduna State Police Command has launched a manhunt for suspects following the discovery of 210 rounds of 7.56 mm ammunition that fell from a moving passenger bus along the Zaria-Funtua Highway on Tuesday. It was gathered that some bystanders quickly collected the ammunition and alerted security operatives stationed in the area. Police spokesperson in Kaduna, Mansour Hassan, in a statement said efforts to trace and apprehend the fleeing vehicle were unsuccessful, which the command attributed the delays in information reaching the patrol team. Hassan said authorities believe the suspects dumped the ammunition after sensing danger due to increased motorized and snap checkpoint patrols by the command. He added that a full-scale manhunt for the fleeing suspect is currently underway. Now, residents of Ganga village on the outskirts of Daura town along the Daura-Katsina road are calling for help 3 years after their farmlands and residential plots were taken over by the transmission company of Nigeria, TCN, without compensation. The 25-hectare land initially acquired for a proposed solar electricity project in Daura was taken over without explanation, proper documentation, or any commitment to compensate the affected landowners. Abdullah Yamadi visited the disputed site in Ganga village, Daura, the headquarters of Daura local government area of Katsina State, and sent in this report.
The land at the center of the dispute is not just fenced. It is already fully demarcated by TCN, giving residents the impression that the takeover was final long before any conversation began. The 25 hectares contain about 400 plots and farmlands owned by roughly 100 people. Many are retirees and low-income owners who saw this land as their safety net. For 3 years, they have been asking TCN to either compensate them or release the land so they can continue using it. They say the long silence has pushed them into economic hardship, especially as prices rise and incomes shrink.
We went government to look and intervene to this situation to see people are being compensated, because almost 90% or 99% of these victims are masses, those who are retired and some who are lower earning. They sacrifice all they have and buy this pollute. Some have started even constructing their buildings, and yet from all these years since 2021 to date, nothing has been made. So we are praying for the authorities to look into this situation.
My plot belonged to an orphan I'm taking care of. I acquired the plot for her and I intend to support her start a new life. Secondly, the girl is in secondary school. She can get married anytime after her secondary education. We appreciate the State Commissioner of Lands and Physical Planning, who has been supportive to our cause.
We used our retirement benefits to buy these plots. I bought mine so I could resell it when my daughters are getting married. We appeal to Governor Diko Umarurada to intervene and rescue us from this situation. Residents say they have spent years writing letters, visiting offices and seeking intervention, but nothing has changed. They describe the experience as frustrating and familiar, pointing to other unresolved disputes involving the same company, including the Kankyo community case, which still lingers without closure. Their hope was recently lifted when the Katsina State Ministry of Lands opened communication with TCN. But they say they need answers, not promises. In Nigerian law, citizens have the right to own property, and no land should be taken without due process. Here, residents say no process was followed, just fencing, demarcation, and silence. Daura-based legal practitioner barrister Abdul Salam Sabiu says the landowners deserve clarity. He explains that seizing and fencing land without documentation or compensation puts the owners at an obvious disadvantage.
This procedure really offends the provision of law. So it's not in tandem with the rule of law. It is not legally exercised. And even though the people of this area are friends of the government, they don't want to join issues with the government. They are only doing this to bring to the notice of the government so that the government can do the needful, to consider their right, to consider their interests, and do what behoves on them in accordance with the law.
Residents warn that ignoring due process in land acquisition creates unnecessary tension and breeds distrust, especially in communities already battling economic hardship and insecurity. They call on authorities to step in quickly before the dispute escalates. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Kazana.
Now, the Minister of State for the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Maria Mahmood, says Nigeria's transition from expensive polluting fuels to abundant and cleaner natural gas is now central to the federal government's plan for sustainable transport future under President Bola Tinubu. Speaking at the second annual Compressed Natural Gas CNG Conference and World Sustainable Transport Day held at the National Open University of Nigeria in Abuja, the minister described the country's shift to compressed natural gas as more than a technical upgrade, calling it a strategic investment for national survival and economic transformation. She noted that the FCT administration, led by Minister Nyesom Wike, is pioneering reforms to build a transport system in Abuja that reflects efficiency, sustainability, and convenience. The minister urged private sector partners, financiers, transport operators, and technical experts to align with the government's commitment, stressing that Nigeria's progress depends on swift and collective action. The conference, she said, provides a platform to strengthen national resolve towards a cost-effective, low-emission transport system powered by Nigeria's natural gas resources. She expressed confidence that the resolution from the conference will help secure a cleaner, more sustainable Nigeria for future generations, while reaffirming the FCT's leadership in advancing the country's sustainable transport agenda. Nigeria has strongly condemned Wednesday's military coup in Guinea-Bissau, describing it as a major threat to democracy and stability in West Africa. In a statement by Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Kimebi Imomotimi, the federal government expressed deep concern over the unconstitutional change of government, saying it violates the ECOWAS protocol on democracy and good governance. Nigeria called for the immediate restoration of constitutional order, the release of all detained officials, and the protection of democratic institutions. It also urged the military authorities to guarantee the safety of election observers still in the country. Now, as the global community prepares for World AIDS Day on December 1st, the National Agency for the Control of AIDS is rolling out a week of activities under the theme Overcoming Disruptions, Sustaining Nigeria's HIV Response. The report.
The week opens a space to raise awareness, support people living with HIV, and restate Nigeria's goal of ending AIDS as a public health threat by 2030.
We have good stories because the theme for this year is overcoming disruptions. And we thank God, just as it's been alluded and testified to by the patient committee themselves, that we have a listening government, we have a responsible government, we have a responsive government, and we are overcoming disruptions. Overcoming disruption, sustaining Nigerians' HIV response is not just a slogan, it is actually a strategic priority. It is a declaration of resilience as a government. Over the past years, like the rest of the world, we faced significant disruptions, particularly recently with the changing global funding landscape.
Civil society groups joined the event, including NEP1 and ASH1. Their leaders spoke on government support and the need for a stigma-free environment for people living with HIV.
Looking at the theme, overcoming disruption, as we all know, at the beginning of this year, it was a hell, not for only Nigeria, but for the entire world. But one significant achievement, and that made us to stand proud to be a Nigerian, is the commitment of the federal government. I want to inform you that in the midst of all this, I received a personal note from the Honorable Coordinating Minister for Health and Social Welfare, informing us directly about the effort of Mr. President for approving 200 billion naira. 200 billion naira in the 2025 appropriation to tackle HIV, TB, and malaria.
And in sustaining the response, it calls for so many things that we need to do. And it's all about the money, but it's all about the intention and the commitment that we need to do. And then putting it in mind also who are the real beneficiaries and the people that we need to provide this necessary support to end AIDS. We have had so many care, we have had so many support, treatments available. But even as of today, people are still dying as a result of AIDS. So we need to also set our mind on that, to know that there are a lot that we need to do together.
Gokwim Sayulnen 20, living with HIV, shared a short message urging compassion and reminding Nigerians that many people struggle quietly.
Okay, so the experience has been really vast. I don't think a short interview can take it, but yeah, it has been cumbersome. It has been a roller coaster, and also it has been inspiring living HIV. And I've been living HIV for the past 20 years now, and living with it has really taught me a lot, that you have to give in order to receive, and you have to just be compassionate to people around you. Imagine if you're not living HIV, you wouldn't know what another person is going through, right? And then you living HIV, you now see the world in a bigger form, that you have to show love no matter what it is, because you don't know who is living HIV, right? And it's not written on the face. So you have to treat people with compassion, with love, with understanding, and also see people in a bigger way rather than just discriminating and stigmatizing people.
The event ended with the unveiling of the 2025 World AIDS Day theme, Overcoming Disruption, and the distribution of free HIV self-testing kits. NACA says the goal now is to sustain momentum and make sure no one is left behind. As the week continues, Nigerians are encouraged to use the free testing kit and know their status. Tanti Azal, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now moving on, Africa is preparing to map out a fresh economic direction as policymakers, business leaders, development partners and innovators converge for the Africa Blueprint Summit 2025. The gathering aims to produce a shared plan for the continent's next phase of growth. Noel Sampson reports.
The Africa Blueprint 2025 Summit brings together key players influencing the continent's economic path. It creates a space for governments, the private sector, and development institutions to work on a coordinated strategy for long-term progress. The summit comes at a time Africa is dealing with rising unemployment, slow industrial expansion, and limited investment flows, issues that demand fresh thinking and clear actions.
Africa stands at the threshold of historic transformation. We are endowed with talent, resources, and a vibrant youth population, and market unmatched everywhere in the world. Yet, we acknowledge the structural barriers that have historically delayed full emergence as a global powerhouse. The Africa Blueprint is designed to confront challenges not just with rhetoric, but with clarity, strategy, and collective actions.
Across Africa, there is growing awareness that our long-sought economic transformation will not come from isolated national efforts, but from deliberate, coordinated, and visionary leadership that bridges the public and private sectors together. This summit represents more than a meeting of CEOs. It represents a collective commitment to shaping the Africa of tomorrow.
It's time for action. Everybody knows the potential of Africa. It is enormous, but that potential has to be tapped. And the way to tap it is to harness all the strengths, the resources, and the energy of the private sector. Because the private sector is the one who can do business
Now, to translate ambition into tangible outcomes, there are specific areas where deeper private sector leadership will accelerate national progress and unlock strong commercial returns. These are the areas. 1, irrigation facilities and services, agricultural mechanization services, soil diagnostics and restoration, crop genetics and seed technology, climate smart agriculture and carbon market solutions, storage, logistics and cold chain infrastructure, rural landscape infrastructure and off-farm activities, processing and value addition, export logistics and certification, digital platforms linking farmers to markets and inputs.
With top-level representation and renewed interest in building stronger economic systems, the African Blueprint 2025 Summit is expected to set the tone for new policies, new partnerships, and a more coordinated approach to development. Well, Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now, the Kebbi State Court in Birnin Kebbi has revoked the bail of Umar Yakubu Kamba, also known as Dangote, who was initially granted bail on November 19, 2025. The Attorney General of Kebbi State took over the case and applied for the revocation, citing reasons that were not specified in the court proceedings. Despite the defense counsel's argument that Kamba had fully complied with all bail conditions and that the revocation lacked factual evidence and opportunity for the defendant to be heard, the court granted the revocation. It's worth noting that Umar Kamba is a prominent businessman and has been involved in other public discussions, including a meeting with former Minister Abubakar Malami, where they discussed governance issues in Kebbi State.
Today, the 25th of November 2025, we came before CMC1 Birnin Kebbi for the continuation of the substantive matter. To our greatest surprise, the Attorney General of Kebbi State had taken over the case, and counsel from the Ministry of Justice made application for the revoke of the bail already granted, which we vehemently oppose, since our client has not in one iota breached any condition. And we argue that Section 183 of the ACJL provided there must be a factual circumstance which the defendant must be given enough time, opportunity to be heard that will lead to the revoking of his bails. Nothing of such happened. There was no circumstances that the prosecution present before the court. No any offense of higher degree was mentioned in their application. But to the greatest surprise, the bail of my client was revoked. And this is technically what happened in this court today.
And now in business, the African Development Bank Group has announced the approval of a fresh $500 million loan to the federal government of Nigeria to finance the second phase of the Economic Governance and Energy Transition Support Program, aimed at strengthening fiscal policies, driving energy sector reforms, and promoting climate action. A statement issued by the Communication and External Relations Department official Alexis Adele on Wednesday said the AFDB board of the directors approved the loan during a meeting in Abidjan, and that it covers fiscal years 2024 and 2025. The program will target 3 key strategic areas to drive Nigeria's economic and energy reforms. First, it aims to deepen fiscal policy reforms by strengthening public fiscal management systems and enhancing the transparency and efficiency of government spending. Secondly, the initiative will focus on energy sector reforms, seeking to accelerate improvements in the power engineering sector to reduce energy poverty, expand access to electricity, enhance sector governance, and attract greater private investment. The program also aims to advance energy transition and climate action by supporting the implementation of Nigeria's energy transition plan. Now, away from Nigeria, Guinea-Bissau's military on Thursday announced General Hota Nta as the head of new junta, solidifying a forceful takeover that began on Wednesday, just days after the country's presidential elections. The military high command said the junta will oversee a one-year transition period, a move broadcast on state television. The opposition had earlier claimed victory in the tightly contested vote and accused President Umaru Sissoco Embalo of orchestrating a coup to avoid electoral defeat. The African Union Election Observation Mission, ECOWAS Election Observation Mission, and the West African Elders Forum swiftly condemned the military takeover, describing it as an unconstitutional disruption of a peaceful electoral process. In a joint statement signed by former Mozambique President Filipe Nyusi, Isifo Kamara, and former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan, the groups demanded the immediate release of detained officials and called for urgent steps to restore constitutional order and allow the election process to conclude. The junta had earlier removed the president and suspended the electoral process while results were still being awaited. And with that, we have come to the end of News Update on Trust TV. Do not forget to watch and catch us across all our social media platforms for more news, programs, and documentaries. I am Fatima Ahmed Musa. Thanks for watching.